Now, Barbara Smoker was an outspoken atheist who was president of the National Secular Society. She described herself as an anarchist and also campaigned against nuclear weapons and in favour of voluntary euthanasia. Barbara relished the cut and thrust of public debate.
Baptism, the main purpose, as I understand it, is to wipe the baby's soul clean of the stain of original sin. To think that babies inherit this stain, we think, is obnoxious.
For an insight into her character, we spoke to Barbara's nephew, Professor Anthony Costello, and her fellow campaigner, Dennis Cobell.
She was a very lively personality who talked a lot.
As a young woman, she had red hair and was very beautiful, actually, in her 20s and 30s.
She was a very frugal person, and she had a very good sense of humour.
She was argumentative, an atheist, an anarchist.
To say that she was controversial and argumentative is true, but she did try and bring people together.
Barbara Smoker was brought up in a devout Catholic family in South London. As a young girl, she contracted scarlet fever, which led to a long stay in hospital.
At one stage, she believed she was going to die because she was moved to the bed by the door, which they always used for people about to die so that they could take the body out without the other children noticing. And then she left school at about 14, 15 because of the war. She learnt shorthand typing. And then she became a WAF and spent a lot of her time in South Asia. And she was proud of the fact that she was the person who announced the end of the Second World War in Asia, I guess through a Morse code message or something to all the ships.
I was going to be a nun. I was determined I was going to be a Carmelite nun. I realise now that I got feelings which were sexual feelings, and this was in contemplating Jesus and all this sort of thing, and especially Jesus and the agony in the garden and the scourging at the pillar and the crucifixion. All these sadomasochistic elements of the legend, really, I think, did affect me in that way. And, of course, I liked the feelings I had, I didn't realise it had anything to do with sex.
She was in Lewisham Library one day in 1949, standing by the bookshelves where there were books on philosophy, and it was at that particular moment in the library there where she decided that she no longer believed in God.
As I stood there, I realised that it had all crumbled away. It was impossible for me. And I said to myself, I'm no longer a Catholic.
As president of the National Secular Society later on, of course, she was challenging religious privilege and supporting the idea of separation of church and state. But she was also very much opposed to belief. But in a positive way, she became a humanist, and she regarded as her legacy a book that was commissioned in 1973 with the title Humanism, aimed at secondary school children, but which became an easy read for adults and had a considerable influence.
She told me that when in her 70s, she was invited to India, where they had a big atheist convention, and she went there, and there were 12,000 people in some massive hall where she spoke to them, and they treated her almost like a goddess. She was fiercely rational, and of course, on many of the issues that she fought, she was right and ahead of her time. She could be difficult. I mean, not all of her family appreciated her lectures and her idiosyncrasies.
The life of one of Britain's foremost writers, Salman Rushdie, was to change forever.
When there was a demonstration connected with the burning of Salman Rushdie's book, Satanic Verses, Barbara Smoker stood with a placard, a homemade placard, with just 2 words, free speech, on them, protesting against the fundamentalist Muslims who were, in fact, eventually attacking her, and she was rescued by members of the Metropolitan Police Force.
Humanism on the one hand and gayness on the other.
She will have broadcast many times in BBC studios, both on the radio and the television.
And I thought, well, perhaps, for instance, fundamentalist Christians, many of them might be cat lovers.
Latterly, she was outside a broadcasting house with a banner requesting that humanist speakers should be included on Thought for the Day.
Barbara Smoker is a former president of the National Secular Society, well known in this field. She's with us. In what way are your human rights infringed? I mean, clearly you don't like Thought for the Day, that's clear, but why does it infringe your human rights?
On a programme which is